What's up guys, macadii here, and today guys, week 7 of the GPC League, where I'm up against Matt, coach of the Philadelphia Focus Miss. So if you guys enjoy the battle, don't forget to leave a like down below, I would really appreciate it. We are currently 5-1, it will be fantastic if we can get one more win under our belt, because that will mean that we'll be 6-1, which brings us in second behind Merc, who I think is 7-0 right now. I played this battle fairly late, literally just today when I've uploaded it, so yeah, well, I have made some changes to my squad in the transaction period in between, which is why we had that week off. So I made some pretty dramatic changes. So I dropped Sylveon, Alomomola, Pyroar, and Tyrantrum. Unfortunately, Sylveon was really good. It was doing really well, but I needed some more versatility in my team, and sort of modeled quite a few different options, and this one seemed to be really good because that allowed me to get back Terrakion. I can get Terrakion, Entei, and Primarina, which gives me a much better fire type. Primarina is still a pretty good water type, and it also allows me to lump the two together, and it gives me a much better wall breaker. Like Alomomola, it has been good, it has been really useful, but it's being really passive means it's actually quite good, easy to prep and be taken advantage of, whereas Primarina is a little bit harder and just a little bit more offensive. Entei does mean I lose a little bit of speed there, but Terrakion kind of makes up for that, and Entei is just a really great wall breaker, and that's what I kind of need. I need some way to be able to stack, you know, as much as possible, but also just ways to break to then let Mega Lopunny clean up. They've all got pretty good inherent bulk to them, so it's more like sort of bulky offense, which is really nice. And Terrakion forms a really nice core with Mega Lopunny because they're both. It's one of those things where they both have kind of got it's called offensive redundancy, so they both get checked by kind of the same Pokemon, and Mega Lopunny by a sort of smaller selection than Terrakion. But basically it means that I can use one of them to break down the team to then say for example I use Mega Lopunny to break down Scarm as easy as possible to then let you know, say Scarf Tyrantrum sweep, just an example, or from the other way around, you know, Banded, not Tyrantrum, I'm saying Terrakion. Yeah, it's late in the day, and I'm pretty tired from this weekend. But anyway, Terrakion could be Banded, say, and that would be able to help Mega Lopunny sweep. So they sort of work hand in hand by forcing some checks to be able to check both of them, and they can get overwhelmed and things like that. Gives me some better setup options. Like, Tyrantrum is good, but it just needed a little bit more speed, and even with Dragon Dance set, you're not outspeeding a lot of things, which is a bit of a shame, and you know, Terrakion having Swords Dance and things like that is really, really nice. So what we'll do now is we'll go into the team builder for this week. So let me make sure I got into the right thing. So what we'll do is we will run through his team. Let me just pop that on the other side so we can have a look at his team. So Matt has got Zed Latias, a very, very spooky mon. Especially, you know, with a Carmine set or something like that. That's to watch out for. Celesteela, Crocodile, Hawlucha, Dragouge, Vaporeon, Thunderous T, Tangela, Diancie, Golurk, and Mega Pidgeot. So it's a really weird squad, I must admit, when I first looked at it. But he does have some really big threats, like the Celesteela is quite spooky if you don't prep for that properly. Like the Spadef set, or even the physically defensive set, is really annoying, especially for my Mega Lop, because I can high jump kick it once, but then if I get the Protect wrong, then he can just Protect, I hurt myself, etc, etc. Crocodile could be a very spooky Scarf set. My best checks are kind of mainly, I would say, the Crobat, and it's just a Scarf Moxie could be a particular problem. Never underestimate Hawlucha. I know I think they price Hawlucha very, very low here, but Hawlucha could be a very definite threat there. Fundy T is spooky, but I think the lack of speed on it and the amount of priority I've got this week means it's not as much of a problem. And yeah, I just basically wanted to go full out offense against him. I had lots of ways to be able to wall break him. I had my new shiny wall breakers, so I figured why not, let's bring some good wall breakers and let's have Mega Lop and Power Boy, my Terrakion, to kind of clean up from there. So, and we've also got a very, very spicy muck set to finish, so that's a particularly fun set to talk about. But anyway, we've got a Lop set with just Fake Out Quick Attack, which allows me to check Hawlucha, Agility, Thunderous T, for example, Mega Pidgeot, if it ends up just being a... I don't know. To be honest, I don't know, it might get Agility or something, so in case that happens. But basically, it just... Double priority works really nice for me. I don't need any other coverage, because high jump kick and return hits everything else pretty hard. Could have gone Fire Punch with Celesteela for like a neutral thing, but for a super effective hit that I didn't then have to miss, but I figured I've got quite a few ways to be able to handle that, so it's not my biggest worry. So return high jump kick hits everything else neutrally, which is really nice. So that's pretty much the set from that. I decided to go Adamant on here. It was a risk because it didn't outspeed max speed Mega Pidgeot, but I didn't expect him to speed creep max speed. So, or, you know, sort of run max speed. He wouldn't have to do that. I think he'd be able to speed creep Terrakion or something. So I did go max speed, but with an Adamant nature instead, just to get as much power out as possible, because I needed that to be able to break things like Celesteela, physically defensive Latias, for example, if that wanted to check me. Next up, we got Primarinus. This is my first wall breaker, which is a choice spec set with Hydro Pump Moonblast. If Celesteela doesn't come, I can pretty much just spam Moonblast as much as I want. If I want to predict it, I can go Hydro Pump. Ice Beam there is because it's their neutral on Celesteela and quite a few of his team. He has actually got quite a big ice weakness outside of Vaporeon. Everything else, he's got, actually, now I look more at it, it just gets worse because he's got Latias, Crocodile, Hawlucha, Dragouge, Thunderous Tea, Tangela, Golurk, Mega Pidgeot. So 8 of his have got ice weaknesses. So Ice Beam is looking very spammable for me, which is looking great. And then the Energy Ball from there. Next, we got Power Boy, the Terrakion. So this is my other cleaner. Once Latias gets worn down, it's looking pretty good. And just the inherent first sort of massive attack stat it's got me. It doesn't need too much extra power. And it gives me a check to quite a few important things like Autotomize Celesteela. I can revenge that because I'm guaranteed to outspeed. Scarf Crook can't then Moxie Sweep me. Let's see what else. Thunderous Tea, if that's Scarfed, I can outspeed it, and I'm speed crept for that. So it's just a really nice mon in general versus him. I did really want Banded to start because it's that same sort of thing with Primarina. He really struggles to switch in, but I needed some way to be able to check his offense, and this seemed to be the best way to go. Next, we've got Einstein the Rotom. I love Rotom so much, as you guys know. We've got a Spadef set, kind of soft check to fund the T in a way, but mainly allows me to check things like the Latias. I can switch in pretty much without any worries on Celesteela, and just pressure things like Vaporeon and Mega Pidgeot. It's just a nice general switch in and pivot, as it always is, and I absolutely love it. Next up, we have got Entei. So this is Choice Band Entei. He hasn't really got the best switches to this. Latias still takes a really good chunk from Sacred Fire, especially if he's not got any defense investments. Dragouge isn't his best switching. His best switching is the Vaporeon, but then I've got Einstein that can switch in. Ugly Starter can switch in, so I've got ways to be able to handle that pretty well. And then Extreme Speed is nice for that priority, so I've got lots of ways there to be able to check a Hawlucha. And then finally Return, just because it gives me nice neutral coverage versus most of his team. Then finally, we got the super spicy set of Muck, which is a Rest Talk Muck with Curse. Because when you look at his team, he doesn't really have much that switches into a knockoff. And the only thing that really switches in to handle me well is like Crocodile. But if I can get rid of Crook's Scarf, so it's that's going to be really nice for me. So basically, I've got lots of ways to set up. I can set up on Latias, I can set up on Celesteela, Vaporeon, Thunderous Tea to an extent as well if it's not Nasty Plot, Tangela, Diancie, Mega Pidgeot. There's lots of places where I can set up there really nicely, set up a few curses, force him to go into his Crocodile, and then I can just go for a knockoff. Even if I take a lot of damage from that, or he doesn't decide to bring Crook, I have really good potential there to be able to sweep, which is nice. Poison Touch to be able to pass these poisons as well. It's just looking really, really nice for me. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go into the battle, and you can see what happens from there. Okay, so we are at the battle. As you can see, he's brought some very big threats, including, I was surprised that Golurk bring in a way, because it does check my Terrakion pretty well, but it's not got the best matchup versus my team, if that makes sense. Like my Primarina is going to be outspeeding it because I've speed crept Vaporeon. Entei does load. Just everything's got a really good matchup versus Golurk, apart from obviously the the Terrakion. So I'm not too worried about that. Crook is there as I expected, because Crook is a massive threat versus my team. Just lots of really big threats piled up, and it'd be really nice to be able to wall break and get rid of that Vaporeon, because that helps Entei a lot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the battle, starting here. So I lead off with my Primarina, because I figured I got a pretty good matchup versus almost everything. I got matchup of that, but not obviously the Thunderous, but I've got a switch into Rotom, so I'm not too worried about that. So he does go into Celesteela here. I go for the Moonblast, showing me straight away really good information that he is Spadef. That's fine by me. I was tempted to go for Energy Ball, but I figured Moonblast was the good middle ground play. So now I can go into my cheeky little Rotom, and he goes into Crook, and that's great, because I've got that Colbur Berry. I can take a knockoff if I need to. So he goes for that Pursuit, and I'm going to eat that Colbur Berry up nice, and I am going to get that Willow off, which is absolutely huge, because now that big threat is now out the way. So he's now going to switch out, go into his Fundy, as I decide to Pain Split here, just to be a little bit cheeky in case he wants to go for another Pursuit or something like that, and I'd be able to wear him down a little bit. But he goes into Fundy, and that's fine by me. So he goes for Psychic, doing a really good amount of damage to me, as I get a Will-O-Wisp, which is really, really nice. And now what I can do is I can switch into my Muck. I'm not 100% sure. I imagine the Dark Pulse actually was to... Psychic was predict the Terrakion switch, which is fair. I was tempted initially to go straight into my Muck, but when I saw Life Orb, I was thinking Burn plus Life Orb would be a great way to wear this down, so that would make me really happy. So now I go into my Muck, as he goes with Dark Pulse, and that does absolutely nothing. So Muck doing his work. Now I can set up a cheeky Curse if I want to. I believe I go straight for the knockoff, predicting him to switch, because being able to just knock him off and potentially do a good amount of damage to him was definitely worth it first, rather than trying to set up. And also if he went straight into Crook or Golurk, then I could knock their item off and do a good amount of damage. So now he goes to Heal Bell, which is really sad because I was so happy about being able to burn the Crook, but that gives to Muck a turn to set up its Curse, which is great. I go for Knockoff here because I'm sure he's going to switch, and considering how little Knockoff did before, I think he's going to think, oh, he's going to go for another form of setup, so I decide to go for Knockoff here. So I go for Knockoff, kill the Golurks. That's great. Getting rid of Golurk is absolutely fantastic. That gets rid of one of the checks to Muck. It's literally just the Crook that's left. So now I'm going to go for another Curse. I knew he was probably going to be bringing Reflect like Latias if he was, with some sort of like Earthquake, but to be honest, this set really doesn't care about Earthquakes, because now I can just keep setting up Curses. Now at this point here, I'm sure, I was thinking about it, I was like, right, I think I'm going to go for Knockoff here, because if he decides to switch out into his Crook, this is probably the time where I'm putting enough pressure on him where he wants to switch. And even if not, I'm knocking off his item. But he reveals the Z move, and he goes for the Z Tectonic Rage, and that does nothing. Mark is beautiful. So I get the knockoff. It doesn't do a huge amount. Here I predict him to switch, so I go for another knockoff. This is great. This is why I love the Muck, being able to just pressure his team. So he then ends up having to sack off his Thunderous, which is great. And now out comes the Crook, and this is the situation I wanted. So I'm expecting this to be Scarf, so now I can go for the knockoff, get rid of its Scarf, which is absolutely huge for me. So he goes to Earthquake, Mark taking it like a champ. I go for knockoff here, and at that point I was kind of looking at the matchup and I was like, oh, actually, I can still set up on Latias, I can rest up. Celesteela, I don't worry too much about. I can still rest up on that, and I can rest up on Vaporeon. So if he ends up getting rid of the Crook a bit too early, Mark's actually a bit of a win con. A lot of my team was actually a bit of a win con at this time. So I did look and I was like, right, what don't I need? So Crook outspeeds Entei, Vaporeon doesn't mind Entei, Latias doesn't mind Entei that much. Celesteela is the only thing, and it could be a bit of a risk to lose it early on. So I think I'm going to take that risk. I've got lots of ways to be able to check him. So I decide here to sack off Entei.
Around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces.
Now I can go out into my Lopunny, and I can literally just high jump kick here because his Latias is at like 88%, I think, 80%. High jump kick will do about 30 or so. And then I can pretty much heal with a return, depending on his spread. But it seemed to be my best point, so I was like, come on, get the high jump kick. So get the high jump kick, get the crit. Doesn't make too much difference, to be honest, because I could have got him again from there. Out comes Celesteela as I go Einstein. Now I did make a bit of a misplay with the set of turns here, so he does go for the protect, which I was expecting him to have. So I go for Willow here, just because anything getting burnt would have been really sad. For his side, and now I expect him to heavy slam, so I go for Pain Split here. I should have really Willowed. It's just a little bit of oversight, but I do Pain Split here, and now I'm in a difficult position because he's now got his Crook in for free. He just goes to Pursuit, gets rid of me. That's fair enough. It would have been nice to keep that round, but now I can go back into my Lop. I can go for HJK here and do a good amount of damage. Now here I expected him to be cheeky because I've got lots of switch-ins. You know, Muck doesn't mind too much about the switch-in. Terrakion, I wouldn't really switch him, but mainly Primarina and also Muck. So I was expecting him to expect me to switch now that he's shown Protect, and I won't go for another HJK. So I was like, well, we'll go for another high jump kick, because he's at the amount of damage that my Lopunny is at actually really doesn't matter at this point, because nothing outspeeds me. I OHKO pretty much everything. So I essentially get 3 goes at high jump kick missing. So I can afford to high jump kick miss once, which will bring me down 51%. If I miss again, then it brings me down to 1% at some point. You know, or he gets a double protect, that's fine. But essentially, I had a few high jump kicks left in me, and if he was going to protect and do it, then it was worth me staying in, essentially. So I go for high jump kick here, as he does not go for the protect, and we take him out from there. So Celesteela out of the way means it's basically GG, because Primarina can take a hit from anything and go on from there. So now I switch out, sack off my Muck, because Muck doesn't look particularly happy right now. And Muck did a fantastic job. Muck was definitely MVP of the match, because he managed to get out two really big threats, really pressure his team early game, and force him to lose that Scarf on the Crook, which definitely was one of the big factors in my win here. So now I go into Primarina. He goes to Reflect type, but no, Primarina, there is no stopping a Primarina. Spect Primarina is power, so he desperately goes to Recover, but unfortunately it won't be enough. Goes to Earthquake, does a little bit of chip, but that's fine. And now I get the GG from here, because Crook is going to come out. I can take the hit.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
But I don't, so I have to go into Terrakion here and clean up. That was unfortunate. The crit there was a very, very sad point, but it's fine. I just lose one differential, but essentially we get another win. So we are now 6-1, which is fantastic. Really, really fun game. And as I said, Mark being the beautiful thing that it is. But anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, and I will see you guys later. Macadii out.